Welcome along to Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with myself, Dan Roebuck, alongside me, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Fellas, very good day to you both. It's the last weekend of Liga and Bundesliga regular seasons. We know that there can be relegation playoffs as well, of course. But as we found out, Steve, last week, you've got to tread carefully sometimes because teams that need to win don't suddenly get better. As Effie Brilowski pointed out on our YouTube comments, he was like, crikey, all these French teams that need to win for Champions League spots and whatever just didn't. Strasbourg, Nice and Lille. So it's not that straightforward. You know, we frame some of our selections as like must win. These guys have to win. Not necessarily so they definitely will, but we take that percentage and put it into the way that we frame the odds, I guess, Steve.
Well, good day to you both. And we are nearing the end of the seasons now in obviously mainstream Europe. And I mean, yeah, the French. I must say the two results that surprised me in France last week were the Lille result and the Nice result. Facing teams who had nothing to play for at all, and they lost, put in some really poor performances. So, look, all year we try and get in the heads of players, don't we, and managers and teams, what sort of mental state they're in. And you know, sometimes there's nothing you can do. All you can do is go by the logic. I know some people just treat every game completely the same towards the end of the season. They don't even factor in teams that have to win, teams that are not bothered. They just handicap it as they would do throughout the whole season. Now, that's not the way I do it, but maybe last week in France, that would have been a good profitable way for some people.
James, what are your thoughts? How much do we factor in? Should, as Steve has just suggested there, someone he knows, should we just hang on, let's just do it as we normally do it?
Yeah, well, I'm a big believer in motivation towards the end of the season being a big factor in deciding how games will go. So I got tripped up in France last weekend, not so much with too many picks on the show, but just what I was expecting to see. So you can get surprises. I think one thing we've not talked about too much on the show, because it is difficult actually, is what are the secondary reasons for teams to be motivated. By that, I mean, you know, there are teams who are not necessarily going for a European place or in danger of being relegated, but they might have their own reasons, whether it be a particular points total or something like that. We've got a couple of mentions with regard to players and things like that who might be motivated individually today. Those are harder to identify, obviously, and they're harder to hang your hat on and say this is a clear reason for motivation. But you never know. I think what we saw in France last weekend a little bit was some teams just really enjoying the fact they had nothing to play for, and it worked. They went out there and they just played and they won. So it can be tricky. As I say, generally speaking, I do think motivation's a factor, but it doesn't always go the way you think.
Yeah, very true. And there are sometimes, various targets and goals that the public just aren't aware of. It might be points tallies, it might be personal tallies, who knows? And as you say, when it comes to players, if they're on significant milestones that they could be gunning for, all worth taking into consideration. We've got a reminder of the boys' P&L this season. Steve, you are inching ever closer to a profit here. Look, still very confident, but only 2 weeks to do it.
Well, do you know, I wish I was on the beach and I was like plus 10, plus 15, and I could do what I wanted.
Yeah. Steve has got a target. He has a goal.
But I've had to stay focused. I've had to stay motivated, and I thought about how am I going to play it this week. And the way I am going to do it is just see where I am heading into the final week, and the final week, some strange things can happen. We can maybe have a swing if I need to. This week, I'm just targeting any sort of profit.
Might come down to Steve's same game parlay for the final week of the season. Let's see. Germany is 9:30 on Saturday Eastern. All of the games. France 3 p.m. Saturday. All of the games. Vast majority of Italy is Sunday 2:45, and all of Spain I think is 1 p.m. on Sunday. So we're going to do Germany, France, Spain, Italy in that order. We're going to start with Germany, 3.12 average goals per game this season. A little bit down on last year, 6th highest since the turn of the millennium. If you played the draw in every single game or the away win in every single game, you would have made a profit. So those are winning trends in the Bundesliga this season. Steve, in terms of Champions League qualification, it will be two of Freiburg, Eintracht Frankfurt or Borussia Dortmund. Two of those three. Who do you think is going to fill the final two Champions League spots? I mean, it's wild because obviously Freiburg host Eintracht Frankfurt, don't they?
Yeah, and Dortmund hosts Holstein Kiel, who are already relegated, and I do believe the equation is if Dortmund win by a 2-goal margin or more, then they are guaranteed Champions League football, and that's going to happen. I mean, Dortmund at the time of recording are minus 1667 on the money line. The Asian handicap line on Borussia Dortmund is -3 at evens. The goal line is at 4.5, and it's minus money for over 4.5 goals. By the way, you could actually bet.
Wow.
You could bet under 4.75 goals at -143. The only way you would lose that bet fully is if there were 6 goals or more scored in the game, which is quite
insane.
Ridiculous. I thought about, it is. I thought about maybe a lean here for under 4.5 goals. The problem is, I think Borussia Dortmund are the sort of team, if they go 2 or 3-0 up, they're not going to call off the dogs till it's 5 or 6. They're that sort of team. This train isn't stopping at the minute, Borussia Dortmund. I've mentioned it recently. They're in great form, and I think they'll spank Holstein Kiel silly. I really do. This could be a huge beating, but this is huge handicaps to cover. If this was -2 handicap, I'd be all over them. At -3, no, I can't get involved there. But anyway, point being, I think Dortmund will do their part and get the 2-goal win that they need. Which leaves us with this massive clash, doesn't it? Freiburg against Eintracht Frankfurt. And this is going to be my newsletter pick this week on The Insider. Do subscribe to it if you've not already. And I've not decided on it, but I think the angle that I would go on is goals, because if Dortmund do what we expect them to do, at some stage in the game, one of these teams is not going to be happy with the result. One of them is going to be losing or not in the position they want to be, in which case I think goals possibly come on the horizon, don't they? So the Asian 3-goal line would be the one I'd be looking at on the over here at -114. Just think it could become a wild encounter. Who's the third best team in Germany? This is the old debate, isn't it? A lot have said Eintracht Frankfurt this season. Look, if Frankfurt are truly the third best team in Germany, they've got to prove they get the job done here, right?
Absolutely.
So I suppose we've got to go with them.
Like
maybe
to see Freiburg in the Champions League just for something different.
Yeah, I also would like to see Freiburg in there. It'd be good to see them in there. But I suppose we've got to maybe lean on Eintracht Frankfurt's quality to get over the line in, say, something crazy like a 2-2 draw.
Steve has got one pick and one lean in Germany. Just before we get there, James, one thing we didn't mention right at the top of the show is, we talk about teams needing to do things, but Steve just mentioned it. Sort of in play can get wild.
Yeah.
The game state of the last sort of 15, 20 minutes of fixtures can be different to what it is early in the season. And that's where we don't really touch on in-play betting too much. But that's something that maybe bettors can pick up on in play.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen it year after year, France, Italy, Spain. I think where teams, they go into it thinking, well, we might need to win to stay up, but we might only need a draw. And then they look at, they hear what's going on in the games of their rivals. It can make a difference. We have situations sometimes where teams need an improbable scoreline to stay up. Maybe we're talking about winning by big margins and beating big handicaps. It can happen. If you're playing a team with nothing at stake, it can happen. You can get these huge wins. So, in running play, in-game betting, I think prices will be crazy on not so much penultimate maybe, but final weekends. We've obviously got
final weekends.
Yeah, we got a final weekend in France, and then obviously other leagues next weekend as well. If that's your thing, there are probably huge opportunities. We obviously don't touch on it too much, as you say, Dan, because we're recording at a fixed time before the games, but you can see some crazy swings. If you know what you're doing and you've got the right read on teams, there will be opportunities.
Yeah, some people tell me that there is much more value in play, certainly in the major leagues, than there is pre-match, harder to model, and so on. Right, we have got one unit play from Steve in Germany. It's Gladbach against Wolfsburg here, and we talk about all these teams needing to do this, that, and the other. As far as I can see, there's nothing on this one, Steve, for either side. What you got for us here?
So it's funny you mentioned in-play betting. I'm not going to be able to watch any of these games this weekend because I'm on the cricket field when these matches are on, and I'm in a complete dead zone for signal. I'm at a place called Fountains Abbey near Ripon, right? I'm playing at it's at the cricket grounds inside the Fountains Abbey area. It's nicknamed the Deer Park because there's loads of deer nearby and stuff. Complete dead zone. So I'll be leaving the ground and I'll get the results after it. But yeah, End of season, last games, I like to target matches where both teams have nothing to play for. Because I think the goals often flow. Nigel Seeley often talked about his 3-3 draws on the last game of the season, that sort of thing. And I think this is a candidate for it. I really do. I wanted this as my hot dog. I wanted over 4.5 goals, but it's plus 185. So it's not quite within the hot dog range. So instead, we'll go over 3.75 goals on the agent line at nearly evens, minus 103 at the time of recording. Like I said, last game of the season, two teams that are generally quite offensive. I think 6 of the last 7 meetings in the Bundesliga have gone over 3.5, let alone 2.5. So usually the goals flow when these two teams meet. Now, Wolfsburg recently sacked Ralf Hasenhüttl with 2 games to go. And I watched last week's game, 2-2 draw against Hoffenheim. Now, what I noticed about the team was, I think at this stage of the season, and there was a couple of examples in the English Championship, actually, I think it was Norwich and West Brom sacked their managers. Look what their results were on the last game of the season. I think it was West Brom beat Luton, was it 5-3? And then Norwich had a win out of nowhere, 4-2. And I think his whole aim and ambition here for the last 2 games is get the players enjoying the football again. If they enjoy it, and I think the goals will flow. Wolfsburg looked to me last week like they didn't really want to defend too much, but they quite fancied having a go, having a few shots, players, individual attempts and things like that. So I think it'll be a really open game. Borussia Mönchengladbach both sides have been on the beach the last 5 or 6 weeks. Nice things can happen on a beach, can't they? You can really enjoy yourself. And I think the goals will flow. I did look at the 3-3 scoreline, but it's only 20-1. I'd want 33-1 if I'm backing a 3-3 draw, if I'm being brutally honest. If it had been 33-1, I might have tried to get a quarter of a unit on it as a bonus play. But I can't at 20-1. But I think the goals will flow, like I say, over 3.5. If for those who just want to play it that way, I'm going to go over 3.75 goals. It's a simple equation. 2 offensive teams on the beach, last game of the season, history of goals when they meet, and like I say, this sort of scenario, somewhere there'll be a 3-3 draw somewhere or a 4-3 somewhere, and I think this is the best candidate.
Very quickly on your lean, Steve, you're going unders on a Bayern game, which is #uncomfortable, as Will White would say. What's the thought process here?
Yeah, this is regarding the relegation battle, and we've got a situation where Hoffenheim need a point to guarantee safety, but realistically, it's going to be goal difference. They're 6 goals better off than Heidenheim. So if Heidenheim beat Bremen, and Bremen Bremen's still kind of fighting for something as well. Well, yes and no. But anyway, Heidenheim could win that game, in which case Hoffenheim have got to avoid getting a big beating. So I think under 4 Asian goals here. I think maybe Bayern get a couple of goals up, and I think both teams will just shake hands, maybe call it quits and pass the ball around. No more. No one wants to get injured last game, do they? Bayern are involved in the Club World Cup, I would imagine. I've not actually looked at the lineup for that competition yet. We are covering it this year on the live show. But yeah, the goal line looks high, under 4 Asian for me at minus 136, just because Hoffenheim is still fighting for the goal difference. The one problem might be if the news comes through that Heidenheim are getting well beaten, this could maybe explode and everyone has a party and enjoys themselves. But I'm kind of playing that Hoffenheim will. They're normally offensive, but I think they'll park the bus. They don't mind getting beat by 1 or 2 goals here. Just don't get a big pasting, basically.
Muller is plus 210 to score, incidentally, plus 112 score or assist with his final game for Bayern. Let's get to France, shall we? 3 p.m. Eastern, all of the games. The average goals per season, goals per game this season, 2.94, the highest since the 78-79 campaign. So goals up in France. And if you played over 1.5 goals in every single game, you're about 1.7% return on investment. There is bits and pieces up for grabs here, James. 4th place in the league, which gets you through to a Champions League 3rd round qualifier, is between Nice, Lille, Strasbourg and Lyon. I'll get both of your thoughts on that, and indeed who might go down. James, what do you think? Who's going to come 4th?
4th for me is Nice, who go into the weekend in 4th place, and they've got better goal difference than the teams below them. They know what they've got to do. They're at home to Brest. As long as they win, they should get 4th. I'm backing them to do that.
Steve, who gets 4th?
Yeah, I agree. Nice will get 4th place. They should beat Brest. But Brest surprised me last week by winning their game. So let's see what sort of state of mind they're in.
And Steve, who goes down?
I believe Le Havre will go down automatically. The way I see it, we've got a big game, Strasbourg against Le Havre, which affects both ends of the table. And I think, just based on what I've seen this season, Strasbourg probably should have enough to get over the line there. In which case, if Saint Etienne beat Toulouse, then Saint Etienne will get into the playoff position. So that's the way I see it in that regard. There's still some permutations that could happen. The likes of Stade Reims and Nantes are not actually safe yet. That would throw, there's potential there. But, that's the way I see it in terms of my prediction.
James, who goes down?
Yeah, Le Havre. I agree with Steve. I think Le Havre are going down. They go into the weekend 1 point above the automatic relegation position. But I think he's going to go against them this weekend and they're going to go straight down.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Strasbourg Le Havre shortly. But first up, we're going to get James' 2-unit play, which is Saint Etienne against Toulouse. And Saint Etienne are -103. Must win, as the boys have just alluded to. Your 2-unit play is on Saint Etienne or not, James?
Yeah, it is on Saint Etienne. It's my 2-unit play straight on the money line for Saint Etienne to win, which is available at -102, -103, around even money. We were talking off air about this. I was running it past Steve, who is our official Saint Etienne correspondent, just to see if there was a reason why they're even money. I'm surprised at that because they're at home here in a game that they have to win against a mid-table team in Toulouse who've got nothing to play for. Now, we've talked at the top of the show about the fact that that doesn't necessarily mean that the team with nothing to play for can't make a game of it. But I think Saint Etienne will get their half of the job done here. They need to win to try to avoid relegation and then hope that Le Havre don't win. And I think they should be okay, at least in terms of their own game. I think they should get the win here. A couple of reasons why I think that will happen. The first is they played quite well and won last weekend away from home against a Reims side who did have something to play for. So, they've had pretty poor form, you've got to say, Saint Etienne, most of 2025. But maybe they found a way to win just when it matters. I thought they deserved that win. And it gives them some confidence going into this. And even though, their fate isn't in their own hands because they can win and go down, they do know they've got the easier game when they compare themselves to Le Havre. Le Havre playing Strasbourg away from home, Strasbourg a top side. So I think they'll be desperate to get out there and get their 3 points and then wait and see where they are. The second reason is there is an injury doubt around their top scorer, Lucas Stassin, who we've mentioned on the show many times in 2025. That's obviously a concern. He may not start. He may not actually be involved at all. We don't know. But they did win without him last weekend. And I think that's absolutely crucial because I think, if you've gone back 6 weeks, Saint Etienne might have been nervous here if they hadn't got a win under their belts without him. He's been a really important player. I think the other players stepped up last weekend and showed they can win if he is injured. So it'd be a bonus if he's there, but I'm not as concerned as I would have been maybe a month ago if he's not there. So I think Saint Etienne will keep their end of the bargain, as I say, in this relegation battle. They'll get their win. Will it be enough? We'll have to wait and see. But I think 2 units on Saint Etienne on the money line at around even money is worth a pick this week.
Was, Steve, your hot dog pick last week that cashed, not pressing up with Saint-Etienne officially, at least, but do you expect them to win? Any quick angles on this one?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how many units we've staked on Saint Etienne games since Christmas on the show. I think there must have been. So, this week, I thought I'll give them a rest this week and I'll just watch it and hope that they win the game. But James has picked up the pieces and gone in here with the 2-unit play, which I do agree with. I do certainly think they'll beat Toulouse. The Toulouse manager is suspended for this game. I do believe he won't be on the sidelines. I just wonder if that might lead to maybe a lack of intensity from TFC here. We know where they're going to finish. It's going to be, they can't finish any lower than 12 because of goal difference. This is one of those games where I just think motivation is really, really important in terms of, and I always feel like at the bottom of the table, these are players fighting for their jobs, their lives, everything. It really, really matters. So Saint Etienne around evens looks a good price to me. I would totally agree with this lean. It's not a card I actually like to bet on too much. I'm really disappointed with this card. there isn't any matches between two mid-table sides that I'd just take a wild swipe at with the over. There's only like 3 games where there's kind of nothing at stake, and one of those is PSG or Auxerre. Don't want to get involved in that. And then we've got Marseille and Monaco. Are obviously they're in the Champions League, but I do think both would like to finish second. So I think there's kind of still some stuff riding on those games. So it's a disappointing card actually for me. The last round. This is the only one that really looked like a possible bet. Saint Etienne to win.
Strasbourg Le Havre, James, you've got your hot dog here. We've sort of set up what it means for both here. Strasbourg are the minus money favourites here. I mean, they're likely to miss out on Champions League, but they've still got a bit of a squeak. We know what the situation is with Le Havre. So how are we playing it? What's the angle in betting-wise?
Yeah, the angle in betting-wise is on the goals, Dan, and my hot dog pick is on over 4 goals in the game, which is available at plus 255. Our hot dog plays are 1 unit, of course, every week. So, yeah, I mean, listen, you can get so bogged down in League One this weekend on the permutations because the top of the table in this race for the final Champions League place is very close. And the bottom of the table, there's plenty of ifs and buts and all the rest of it. I think simplifying it, Strasbourg will go into the game absolutely looking to win and win big because they are not only behind in terms of goal difference in this race for 4th place, but they're behind by quite a few goals. So I think they'll give it a real go to be one of those sides who doesn't just settle for a victory but tries to win big. And at the bottom of the table, Le Havre will see it, I think, I'm fairly sure, as a must-win game because if Saint Etienne win their game, and we think they will, Le Havre need to win their game to stay up. So I think you're going to have 2 teams here who go into it thinking sooner rather than later, we're going to have to attack in this match. We're going to have to take some risks. I think for this pick, an early goal would help because it should then really open up. It could go really crazy after that in terms of chances and goals. But I think eventually it will be an open game. And I think by the second half, certainly both teams will probably be swinging and trying to get extra goals. So it's my hot dog play. It's over 4 goals plus 255. With over 4, you will get your stakes back. If there are exactly 4 goals, you'll win. If there are 5 or more. And just on Le Havre, it's not all about the situation for them. It's actually a bit of a trend, is this. If you look back over their last 12 matches, this would have paid out 5 times for you because since February, their goals per game count has gone through the roof. And I think it's partly by design, actually, as well as luck. I think the manager has tried to get them out of trouble by being more positive and more attacking. And I think that will continue here because it's really set in stone now as their style. You'd have won 5 times, you'd have lost 5 times, and you would have had your stakes back twice. So over those 12 games, around these sort of prices, over 4 goals, you'd have made a pretty good profit. So I think you'll get a run for your money here at worst, and quite possibly a winner. So it's hot dog play. It's over 4 goals. It's plus 255.
Steve, in our WhatsApp group, before anyone put their picks in and decided what we were going to do, you said we have to talk about Strasbourg Le Havre. Why? What are you thinking? What was your sort of angle, or was it just the table state that you wanted to mention? What are your brief thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I promised someone on the live show this week, Pat Knox, that we would dissect this game in detail. James is duly obliged. And do you know, the more I think about it, I think goals is a good play here. It's similar to that the Freiburg game I was mentioning. If Saint Etienne do their part and win as we think, at some stage in this game, or most stages of this game, no team is going to be truly satisfied, are they? Because Strasbourg need to win. We think Le Havre are going to have to win, in which case it should open up the game. Risks are going to have to be taken. Again, we do need another result to go our way perhaps at the time. But this is a really good angle, I think, in terms of... But let's just break it down in terms of raw quality. Le Havre are one of the poorest teams in the league. They are. Strasbourg have been really good this season. I think they've been a pleasant surprise. I don't think anyone really had them in the top 6 as a pre-season prediction. Probably top 10. So, but if they do what they've generally done for most of the campaign, that's why last week's result was a real shock. I mean, it was the first defeat in a long time. Who saw that coming? It was a real surprise. So I think they can pick themselves up here and get a decent result. And, I'm going to say Strasbourg will win this game. And I think Strasbourg will win by 3 goals to 1.
Finally, when it comes to the French action this season, Lyon up against Angers. You mentioned sort of players with particular targets, James. I know Lyon have got a very small chance of qualifying for the Champions League. That's probably not going to happen. But the focus will be on one of one of their own, so to speak, in his second spell at the club now, but he's been a terrific servant for them.
Yeah, he has. It's Leon Ange, like you say, Dan. No real interest for me in the game in general. Leon, like you say, can still get in the Champions League, can get in Europe in general. They probably will. But I didn't see anything at all on the match odds or the money line that I liked. For me, this game is all about Alexandre Lacazette. It's been a big story in the French media all week. They've been flagging up that this is likely to be his last game for Lyon. He's been back there 3 seasons after his spell at Arsenal, and he's out of contract this summer, and he's likely to go somewhere else to maybe finish his career. So it's just a lean from me, but I wanted to flag that up because Alexandre Lacazette to score any time, I think, has got to be a great shout here. Not just because it's his last game, but also because he's on 199 goals for Lyon, right? So chance to get to 200 goals before he waves farewell. I think there's a lot of tension at Lyon from the fans at the moment towards the ownership, but I think there'll be nothing but goodwill in this game for Alexandre Lacazette. He's been one of their great youth academy graduates. He's done really well in 2 spells. He's their second highest scorer of all time. Yeah, what a great opportunity to get onto 200 goals here and say goodbye to the fans in the best possible way. So it's a lean on Alexandre Lacazette to score any time. It's available at minus 129. It's not a bad price when they're at home. He's probably going to be on the penalties and they're playing a team with nothing to play for. So have a look at that. Just a lean from me. Alexandre Lacazette to score any time, minus 129. And just very quickly, the other high-profile player, or striker, we should say, who is almost certainly saying farewell this weekend is Jonathan David at Lille. He's put out a message this week saying he will be going in the summer. In Lille's game, Jonathan David's available at minus 108 to score any time. So if there's a sentimental angle or maybe a personal motivation angle that you believe in, these would be the 2 players I think to look out for this weekend.
Yeah, always interesting to see when players go, if they can score on their final appearance. Let's get to the Sunday action. Spain and Italy to deal with. Spain first up, 1 p.m. Eastern, all of the games. Barcelona, Villarreal, we're going to talk about first of all because Steve's got his hot dog here. Barcelona short price favourites. We are recording Thursday morning in the UK. I mean, Barca might have won the title by the time this goes up on YouTube, Steve, but either way, it's going to be their last home game of the season, and they are taking on a Champions League chasing Villarreal. What are your thoughts? Or are they already in the Champions League, Villarreal? I can't remember what the situation is there. What do you got for us?
Well, we are recording before the results of Thursday's games in La Liga, which affects both Barcelona and Villarreal for that matter. But I was looking at the permutations, and I don't mind what happens either way. If Barcelona have won the title, great. If they still need a point or win or whatever, that's fine as well. And the same with Villarreal, because I just think the game just gets played in one way and one way only, and it's going to be wide open. And the recent head-to-heads between these 2 sides have been beyond belief in terms of goals. We've had a 4-3 win for Barcelona, a 5-3 win for Villarreal. That was in this fixture last season, and Barcelona won 5-1 earlier in the season. I cashed a hot dog in that game, I do believe. And I'm going for it again over 4.5 goals at plus 220 are the odds at the time of going on this recording, because I just think it'll be a festival of soccer. Let's be honest, Barcelona probably have won the title heading into this game, and in which case they are just going to want to put on a massive show for the fans. It's just the way it is. They've got nothing else left this season now, and they've got goals galore in them. I think their Barcelona matches average the most goals per game this season.
Yeah.
3.7 goals per game, which is obviously a huge amount. Villarreal at 3.1 per game. We know that generally, in terms of over and unders, these 2 sides are right up there. 12 Barcelona fixtures have gone over 4.5 this season, which is a lot. That's a big amount. This is the second last round as well, where goals usually do flow more in the last 2 or 3 rounds of the season. So, yeah, whatever the results are on Thursday, I just don't see this anything other than a shootout. Both sides will have a good go, and hopefully we can get a wild sort of match. Over 4.5 goals looked very backable at plus 220 here, and I'm surprised actually it's not a shorter odds really. But I guess at this stage, these odds might change maybe depending on what the results are on Thursday. But I just can't even if there's a bit more pressure on the line, don't see that Barcelona aren't the sort of team that are going to randomly just try and sneak a 1-0, are they? They don't play any other way.
I did, yeah. I put up some stats on Twitter last week about over 2.5, over 3.5, over 4.5, over 5.5 with Barcelona games. Bookmakers have got over 2.5, over 3.5 completely nailed down. But you're absolutely right, because over 4.5 and over 5.5, they're both massively more profitable. It's as if they think that they're going to stop. But historically, with certain Barca games, like Clasico last weekend, it just goes wild. I think that's a very nice play. Plus 220, hot dog material from Steve, Barca Villarreal. And just quickly, Steve, you've got a couple of money line leans in Spain on Sunday. Obviously, 1 p.m. Eastern kickoffs. One I can completely understand. One I've got no idea where you're coming from. Let's do the one that I can get on board with first of all. Leganes are away at Las Palmas.
Yeah, Las Palmas are now relegated on the head-to-head rule, right? And do you know what? I've actually had a great season of the outrights on relegation. I did back Las Palmas to go down. I backed Monza to go down. I backed Le Havre to go down, so hopefully they'll go down. And I did back Heidenheim bottom 3. So this could be a complete clean sweep for me this weekend. Anyway, Las Palmas are gone. A lot of people were on that bet. We knew they'd struggle this season. But they were so deflated after losing against Sevilla in midweek. The reaction of the players was devastating. They thought they had gone down. At that stage, I thought they were all right because no one expected Alaves to beat Valencia. That was a real big shock. But yeah, that's relegated Las Palmas, and I just think now, they're going to be in depression mode for the next few days. I don't really think there's going to be anything left in the tank. And it comes down to Leganes now. Leganes have got to win this game. They've got to give themselves a chance. I mean, they could well go down if other results don't go their way. But they have to win this one. And I can't ever remember I've given Leganes out as a lean this season. But plus 135 in a must-win game against a team that have just got relegated. For me, that's just stating the blindingly obvious. If you can get decent plus money on a team in this situation, I'm always going to take a pot shot, to be honest with you, Dan. No matter how poor they might be. Leganes have been fighting for their lives of late. They lost against Villarreal. We're not going to hold that against them. But at plus 135, I expect them to kick off about evens, to be honest with you. When everyone suddenly... I'm not sure everyone really, truly realises the situation yet with Las Palmas. Because if you look at the table, in terms of, the points situation and goal difference, they would still appear to have a chance. But the head-to-head rule is the one that matters in La Liga, and they don't have the head-to-head over Alaves. So good night to Las Palmas. They can enjoy themselves on the beach over the summer there, though.
That's one that I do like and can completely understand. I don't know where you're coming from for the next one, Steve. What have you got for us here? Why have you got this one for us?
Well, this is I'll go with Real Sociedad to beat Girona, right? Straight on the money line. Getting
Nothing on
money.
It for either of them.
Yeah, plus 112, right? Now, this is
This is not a goals bonanza like you've explained previously,
No.
so it's not goals.
Because, I would go goals, but Real Sociedad just missed too many chances. I actually quite like what I saw from them in the second half, though, against Celta Vigo midweek. I've no idea how they didn't score. Again, they just have this knack of... They're great to watch on the eye, but they miss too many opportunities or make the wrong decision final third. They're against a Girona side who are now safe. That's the big thing for me here. They've just achieved safety in a really difficult season for them. They've sort of laboured over the finishing line. And I just think now, again, what's left in the Girona tank? And they've just achieved what they needed to achieve. I think this could be a real flat game for Girona away against Real Sociedad, who haven't won in a while, it must be said. But this is another spot I do historically like to bet on teams sort of at the end of the season when there's nothing to play for. The home team would always get my edge. I just think they're going to give it a bit more in front of their own fans last home game. Traditionally it's I don't want to use the word fortress, but good home record down the years. I think there'll probably be a decent crowd in for the last home game. And I just think Girona might be really flat as a pancake. So it's taking us a little bit of a swing here. Plus 112 on Real Sociedad to win. I'd normally go goals as well in this situation, but they're the sort of team who'll create about 20 chances and win 1-0. So got to be Real Sociedad for me, moneyline lean.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you're talking about what you talked about right at the top of the show, where it's like, let's just take this game on what I've seen in terms of form and what in terms of, there's nothing else on it bar which team might be the better team on the day, and you're sort of spinning it in that way, which I can get with. So that's LaReal at plus 112 at home to Girona. Italy to round things up, plenty to talk about in Serie A. All of the games 2:45 Sunday, bar Genoa Atalanta, which is Saturday, not on our schedule to talk about. We are going to get James's same game parlay first up though here. Inter against Lazio. Inter minus 177, Lazio plus 440. Inter undoubtedly still on a high. Champions League final to come. It's their last home game. Only 1 point behind Napoli now after Napoli completely did all of us last weekend. Lazio with a little bit of a shout of Champions League spot here. So, there's plenty on it for both. What are your thoughts on this one, James? What is the same game parlay?
So it's a really simple same game parlay on what I think will be a great game. I think Lazio will go to Inter and have a proper go here. You're right, they've only got a small chance of top four, but why not give it everything that they've got? And I think they'll be reflected in the way the game is played out. I think it will be fairly open, this match, primarily because of how Lazio would like it to be. So whether they'll get a point or a win, I've no idea. But I think they'll make it an open and entertaining game. So simple same game parlay, 2 legs. First leg of which is both teams to score yes. Lazio are top of the over 2.5 goals table in Serie A. I know that's not exactly the same as both teams to score table, but lots of goals in their games. And Inter not far behind either in that table. It's about 60% of all matches involving these two sides have gone over 2.5 goals. So that's the trend, generally speaking, as regards goals. First leg, both teams to score yes. Second leg of the same game parlay, over 6.5 corners in the game. Would have paid out in 4 of Inter's last 5 matches at home. Would have paid out in all 5 of Lazio's last matches away from home. So just those 2 legs, put them in the same game parlay, and it will pay out at minus 114.
That's the SGP in the Inter game. Inter are now plus 225 of the Scudetto. Incidentally, Lazio 4-1 for top 4. There is a playoff tiebreaker for the champions, and indeed relegation 3rd spot, but not 4th place in Champions League. Incidentally, that'll go head to head, and maybe even goal difference and goals scored and so on. If Inter lose and Napoli win, Napoli will win the title. Napoli are at Parma, and there is a situation where there might be a tiebreaker, and there is some rumour that Serie A might start moving the fixtures around, so there could be a midweek round just to help Inter with their Champions League preparations, but that depends what happens this weekend. Big game in Turin, Juventus against Udinese. Steve's got a 2-unit play, James has got a lean. Juve minus 295 here, Steve, for this one against Udinese. They're in pole position for that final Champions League spot. If they win their last 2 games, they will make the Champions League. I make it. Udinese this weekend, Venezia away in their final game. So how are we playing here? Your 2-unit plays at 2U on minus 295. What's the bet?
It's got to be on Juventus on the handicap. Minus 1.25 on the Asian handicap. Minus 120. Now, that really shocks me how the current odds are that. And they should shorten as the weekend approaches. So I suppose I'm going to make the point that I would back this anywhere to minus 150, actually. Because Juventus, you're right, they've negotiated 2 tough games. Draws against Bologna, draw against Lazio. It's in their hands. If they win their last 2 games, they will finish 4th. Simple as that. So, and they can't ask for an easier game first up here against an Udinese side who have been struggling for quite some time. Lost 6 of their last 8 games, just 1 win in that period. It came in the Cagliari fixture. Of course, I did have a lean on that, but that's Cagliari, isn't it, for you? The most unreliable side for this show, I think, since we've ever started it. So, I'll take that match into isolation. Udinese, this is a really big motivational mismatch. A team completely on the beach against a team really fired up, motivated. They could secure Champions League football here and now if they win, and let's the other results go their way. So there's a big dangling carrot. The big problem for Juventus all season has been getting them to cover the handicaps. Of course, this is the thing, which is why I wouldn't take minus 1.5 on the handicap at all. They're just the sort of team, if you back them minus 1.5, they'll spite you by winning by 1 goal. So it's got to be the minus 1.25 Asian line, because you get the half loss if they only win by 1 goal, which isn't out of the question. But look, they recently beat Monza 2-0 at home, and they had 10 men for the entire second half. They beat Verona here 2-0. They've had a lot of tough fixtures since then. So, I do believe in this instance that we'll get quite a comfortable Juventus success. 2-0 or 3-0 springs to mind, because I just don't think Udinese will care at all. I really don't. I think they'll put up very little resistance. Juventus are not the sort of team. They're not a Dortmund who'll rack up the score. They'll get the goals they need. They don't want to be lingering around a 1-goal lead. Anything can happen with a 1-goal lead. So I think they'll be quite professional, get the second goal, and that should be enough to cover this handicap. It had to be. Of all, I wanted a 2-unit play this week where in a match where there was a big motivational mismatch, and this just stood out to me. I thought the handicap would be minimum -1.5, probably -1.75. We get -1.25 line at -120. That's definitely easily good enough for me, and I'll bet this all the way down to -150.
James, you're of the same thinking here.
Yeah, it's just a lean from me, but exactly the same pick from me. Juventus -1.25 on the Asian handicap, and the same concern as Steve, which is why I was more conservative and gave it a lean. The concern being, will Juventus beat the handicap line? It's not something they've been doing all season. Steve's highlighted a few games recently where they have managed to win by a couple of goals, but it's not been a long-term trend. So I stayed away from making an official pick for that reason. What I would say very quickly is I think they will go and try and win it big rather than settle for simply a 1-goal win, because I think that's in the nature of the manager Igor Tudor, and from what I've seen from Juventus since he took over, they have at least been trying to do that. It's just a case of not managing. So listen, yeah, maybe this weekend against mid-table opposition with nothing to play for, it's a chance to do it. But same pick as Steve, but not a pick from me. It's just a lean.
Just a lean on the Asian line. Juve, we're hoping for a big win. Monza, Empoli has got James's 1-unit play here. Monza +390, Empoli -150. It's bottom hosting second bottom. Monza are down. Huge opportunity for Empoli. They are unbeaten away against the bottom 8. But -150, James, tell me that we're not putting a unit on a side in the relegation zone away from home at -150. What's the 1-unit going on?
Do you know what? We're not just putting a unit on that team, Dan. We're backing them on the Asian handicap to win big here. So, yeah, it is. It's all about Empoli, this game for me. I think, having looked at it, maybe it would be simpler just to back them on the money line at -150 to win the game. I think people... should consider doing that.
I like your play. I like your play. If they're going to win, you've got to go big.
Well, this is it, right?
I can't get with a minus money play in a relegation zone team. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, I get it. And listen, it's been a theme of the show, right? Motivation and how much do you stake on it. This game, I'm staking quite a lot on it. I think Empoli, who, as you say, are second from bottom, fighting to avoid relegation. What a great chance to get 3 points here, facing a team, the only team below you and a team who've already been relegated. So they're -150 on the money line, are Empoli. My 1-unit play is Empoli -1 on the Asian handicap, which is at +130. No stats behind that. This Empoli side do not have a record of winning by a couple of goals away from home. It's simply to try to get a bigger price on a team. It feels to me like a bit of a bet to nothing, because I do think Empoli will win. If they were to win and it's only by a single goal, you've not lost anything with this play. You'll get your stakes back. If they go on and win by a couple of goals or more, then you're going to have a winning pick. So I think it will be a big factor with the motivation this weekend. You said it about Empoli. They're unbeaten against the bottom 8. Which is pretty encouraging going into this game. I think away from home, a lot of their unbeaten matches against the bottom 8 have been draws. I think they've drawn 4 out of 6 away from home, winning only 2. So you need them to improve on that. But I think facing a side already relegated, it's the best chance you're going to have to improve on it. So it's my 1-unit play. Like I say, you might not fancy the Asian handicap pick that I'm going for, which is Empoli -1 on the Asian handicap. But I would be with Empoli here because I think they've got a great chance to get the 3 points.
And just to wrap up with Italy and the show, we've got a few thoughts on a couple of other games. Obviously, we saw Bologna beat Milan in the Coppa Italia in midweek, their first success in that competition since the sort of early mid-70s. I think it was. And James, you were suggesting, look, do you fade those teams maybe off the back of either glory or disappointment? Milan are away at Roma. We know that Roma are gunning for a Champions League spot, and Bologna are away at Fiorentina. Bologna still got a small speak themselves for the Champions League. What are your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, I thought it was worth flagging this up, Dan, because we've had a Coppa Italia final this week, which involves 2 sides who can still qualify for Europe through the league as well, right? So you've got the issue of, what will those factors will those factors, the league situation, matter to them now if they've won or lost the cup? So in some ways, Bologna winning the Coppa Italia this week matters a lot, in the sense they're now in Europe. They're secure in Europe, having qualified through that cup victory, and Milan aren't. But in some ways, I don't actually think the cup win for Bologna makes any difference at all, because like you say, they do still have a chance to get into the Champions League, which they wouldn't forego doing if they can do it through the league. And for Milan now, who are still fighting for Europe as well, it's absolutely clear cut that they need to do it through the league, because they've missed out on their chance of doing it through the Coppa Italia. So I think in terms of motivation this weekend, both sides will be fully motivated. We've got two big games involving them: Roma versus Milan, which is 6th versus 8th, and Fiorentina versus Bologna, which is 9th versus 7th. So actually all four teams in the two games involving the Coppa Italia final sides are going for Europe. I think in the end, the only factor for me that is really affected by that cup win is potentially Bologna's preparation for the league game this weekend. You said it, it's their first Coppa Italia win in a long, long time, and there's no way the players won't have celebrated at all. They might have shortened their celebrations a bit with a big league game, but you'll just have to maybe consider that and take it into account when you're looking at it. But yeah, I think motivation for both of these sides that played in the Coppa Italia will still be pretty full this weekend. And again, Serie A is delivering. We've got two massive games there: Roma versus Milan and Fiorentina versus Bologna, which have got a lot to say, I think, about where teams end up and who qualifies for Europe this season.
And Steve, just to round out on that Roma Milan game, you've got a thought on this one? You like Claudio Ranieri's side?
Yeah, I nearly had this as a pick, to be honest. I'm going with my heart over my head, but that has worked for me sometimes this season. So I think Roma win. Roma win, money line, plus 135. This is Claudio Ranieri's last.
Feels like a big price, that, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. It's his last home game as manager ever. You know, well, you can never rule him out, can you? He might do a Neil Warnock or something. But he's going into the upstairs role, and it's going to be. I mean, it's a sellout crowd. They've got loads of special things planned for him. I think he's also his 500th appearance in Serie A as a manager. This is an absolute legend. So, look, everyone's going to be fired up for this one. We don't always get a fairy tale finish, but I think a plus 135, especially as Milan have just been on the back of that cup final defeat. And is this Milan side really that good at the moment? It's been a poor season for them, hasn't it? Roma really do need the points. They can still qualify for the Champions League. So, at the very least, they want to get in Europe. That'd be a nice little farewell gift, wouldn't it, for Ranieri? So I think this is going to be really fired up. There could be a few cards in this game as well. Tackles flying in, atmosphere intense. But at plus 135, I'm forgetting handicaps, forget draw no bet, forget minus a quarter of a goal. They see Ranieri out with the 3 points. Because I would personally have this price about plus 115, plus 120 under the circumstances. It is a little bit of an emotional pick from me, not going to lie. But sometimes you've got to go with your gut feel, you've got to go with your heart. And I see Roma taking the 3 points.
I mean, I think you can make a case for Roma just on form. Forget everything else. I mean, they've been terrific since the start of the calendar year, since he came in. I think that's a really good bet. And you can add those little factors in as well. Will be one of my plays of the weekend. Look, Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We'll keep everyone updated as always via our X feeds, and of course get your comments in via YouTube. We're on hand over the course of the weekend to let us know who you're backing, who you're fading. That is a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European Show. We're going to be back next week for the final European show of the season. More picks, plays, hot dogs, and so on. We've got the live show 11 a.m. Eastern every midweek day. Follow us at Because We Win. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're inching towards 9,000 followers. From all of us for now, though, it is goodbye. Good luck with your bets this weekend.